Good afternoon, all, at least all on the East Coast, and good morning to our friends on the West Coast. Thank you very much for making the time to spend with us today to talk about the release of InVision 2019. We're really excited about this release. As you know, our vision at Penn-Based Solutions is to create really compelling software to help bring a wide variety of different kinds of facilities information into a single holistic view of your facilities infrastructure. And InVision 2019 really represents a great step forward in that overall vision. InVision 2019 is our largest release to date, and there are many different aspects of the overall system that have been impacted and improved. We have new capabilities for image and document management that are useful really across the piece, from folks that are doing space management, asset management, safety and security. We have new advances in editing, support for line and poly editing, new permissions on those editing capabilities. We have a new automated block plans capability that really makes floor plans so much easier to get at from a user's point of view. We have a wide variety of app updates that Ben will show you, and some back-end updates for those that that administer InVision as well. We're really excited about this new set of capabilities for a wide range of different personas across the organization, starting with space managers. So for space managers, we have new capabilities related to how images are collected and managed and associated with really any object within InVision. For space management, this is most appropriate for buildings and spaces. Right alongside that is document management, so that you can upload and associate documents with buildings or spaces or assets. Automated block plans make it really easy and quick for your users to get at your basic floor plan so that they can download them and print them and take them into the field for their field operations. Enhanced editing allows you to create line and polygon entities within your buildings for a wide variety of uses. It might be creating evacuation plans. It might be creating feedback polys. It might be for creating capital project footprints, that sort of thing. We have some really exciting new enhancements to move management with drag and drop that make that just a delight to use. New permissions related particularly to the enhanced editing capabilities that Ben will show you. And for our higher ed customers, we have some pretty deep advances in our abilities to do indirect cost recovery modeling. If asset management is your thing, we have a new integration with Cartograph that brings really world-class asset and work management indoors for the first time. This is exciting for us and for Cartograph customers. The image and document management capabilities that I spoke about briefly related to space management are equally available and compelling for asset management users, as are the enhanced editing capabilities. There are a number of new enhancements to the asset manager app template that Ben will show you that make it easier to associate other kinds of data to your assets, to edit that associated data in Asset Manager. Really big advances in asset management in this particular release. For those of you that administer InVision, there is new support for ArcGIS Enterprise, so we now fully support federated servers with ArcGIS Portal. We have a new InVision base map template for those of you who are campus customers. There's a new InVision user and role store to help manage the permissions that are associated with different groups of users. And there have been some really important improvements to the configuration assistance that make it easier for you as an administrator to create and publish and manage the capabilities and permissions of the different apps that you're publishing out to your users. So lots of new and exciting things to show. And to show that, I'm going to turn it over to Ben Yetman, who's our Director of Products here at Penn Bay. And Ben will take you through a demonstration of many of these capabilities and others in his demos. If you have questions through the webinar, we'll be sharing out recordings of the webinar, but please put your questions in the questions pane and we'll answer those once Ben is done with his demonstration part. Take it away, Ben.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. I'm excited to share some of the highlights of the 2019 release with you today. For anyone that's interested in the details, you can read all about all the features and functions included in the release on our announcements. But I thought today it might be a little more interesting to actually look at these concepts from a couple different perspectives and how you would actually use them. So we're going to start out today kind of on the space management side. And I'm going to log in, and the first thing we'll look at is, as an organizational space manager, how I can use some of these new capabilities. So I've logged in today, and as an org space manager, I try to keep my finger on the pulse of where we have spaces that are currently unclassified, spaces that we don't really know what's going on. I see one here, and I suspect that this is a space that overnight came in because we finished a retrofit project for a new lab. So I'm going to open Space Manager from my Kpi card. These are defined filters that I've established so I can see my data before I even launch an app. And here I can see there's one space, and this is that lab that I suspected was the new space. So right away, I'm going to drill down and start to do my work. I'm going to start by updating the classification of that space. So I can see here where it is on the floor plan. This happens to be on the first floor of a multi-story building. If I wanted to, I could kind of visualize the spaces around it, how those things being used. But because this isn't classified, currently it's showing up as other unclassified. So I'll start by classifying this as lab space. So this is our new lab. So we'll have a lab facility. We'll turn this into a class laboratory, and I'll save that. Next thing is, this is a pretty big lab, and it's probably a pretty complicated lab, and it helps to be able to visualize what that lab is, not just a polygon on the floor plan. So one of the new capabilities in 2019 is the ability to manage images, either one or multiple, for all of my different entities. So I'll go to my desktop, and I've got a couple images here. This one, I'll open. This is a lab photo. That looks like kind of a mechanical lab, so maybe I grabbed the wrong one. Let me upload another one. Grab the mechanical lab, upload that. And as you start adding more and more photos, you'll notice that we have a gallery view that starts to populate. And we can launch this to see all the images we have. I can see here, this is the one that I meant to add. This is a reflection of the new crystal clean lab, which will be dirty in a couple days, but for now it looks great. So I want to set this as the primary image that people will see when they show up at that space. I also want to change the name because that's not actually lab opening. That's not a mechanical lab, that's the actual research lab. And this is the wrong photo, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this. You can add as many images as you want, and for things like buildings, you may have a lot. For certain types of spaces, you can have multiple, and you can allow different users to launch and view all those as a way to get context. Another thing that's new at 2019 is the ability to manage documents associated with all of the different things you manage. And the core principle behind this is trying to make it ridiculously easy to find the documents that you need. not hunting through a file system hierarchy, not trying to search by year or building or project type, but just being able to, once you find a lab, access the handful of things that people need. So here I can go and upload the MSDS sheet and maybe a class lab outline. You can upload multiple at a time. And we can also, if it's easier, drag and drop. So if I wanted to just drag and drop contacts over, you can easily do drag and drop to help manage documents. So because I have edit permissions, I'm able to upload and I can manage these. Other users may only be able to download these. So if they need to, they can quickly download the MSDS sheet and get on with their business. Another major enhancement we made at 2019 for space management, in particular in higher ed campuses, is better support for managing all the data related to indirect cost recovery. So since I'm an org space manager, one of the other things I need to do is play referee in this space. I need to give certain departments their allocation of this lab. So I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to say, I'm going to allocate College of Engineering 50%, and just because I like keeping things fair and balanced, I'm going to allocate 50% to that's another good organization here, forestry. Stu's a forester, so you're welcome, Stu. Now at a high level, I've created the allocations, and really it's the job of the departments themselves to tell me how they're using it. So we'll get into that in our next scenario as a department space admin. So I've gone from realizing that there's a space that needs some attention to classifying it, to adding some images, some documents, and then allocating that space to the departments that are going to end up using it. I can, if I'm interested, go back up and look at the floor level to see what else might be going on in the space, change my view bys to understand departments, or go all the way up to the building level where I may have all kinds of different images for galleries and different types of stuff that I'm working with. But as a organization space manager, this lets me get from the moment I log in, focusing me on the things that I may need my attention, and then getting me right to places where I can do my work really quickly. So I'm going to switch gears now. You'll see we don't have any unclassified spaces. So as an org space manager, our job's done. Next, imagine that you're logged in as a department space admin. Department space admins are really responsible for their part of the organization. And I can see here, I currently have 7 employees in my department that I manage that need assignment. So to start my work here, I'll start again at a Kpi card. I'm going to launch Space Manager, and Space Manager is going to show me who they are and then has some new tools to help me perform those assignments. Here I can see all those employees. I can see they have assignment counts of 0. I could, if I want, filter to see if any of these happen to be PIs as well. It doesn't look like it. So I'm going to go back to that, my unassigned employees, and from this list of 7, I need to find space to assign them. Now, juggling these people while I'm looking for space, which might be across multiple buildings, floors, even campuses, is kind of tough. So there's a new feature at 19 release called the Move Workspace. This is a place where you can add employees as you're looking for space to assign them. And you can drag people to the workspace if you want. You can add this entire current filter set. We'll go ahead and do that. And these employees will stay there until we perform assignments or we clear our workspace. Even if we have to log out and log back in tomorrow or when we come back from vacation, this will stay there until we're done with it. So next, as a department space admin, we probably want to find some space to assign these folks. So we can look at that by floors and find floors that have potentially high vacancy rates. Let's look for floors that are 50 to 100% vacant. A little demo data, we got plenty of space here. And if we want, we can go to any of these spaces. I'm going to pick this one because this is a familiar building. And when we get to this floor, this is that same floor we were on before with our lab, but let's actually go up to the 5th or 6th floor because let's change the view a little bit here. So we can start this workflow a couple different ways. We could look at spaces by availability. This is going to help us understand where we have available spaces, where we have spaces that are maybe a little bit over, and maybe spaces that are perfectly occupied. So you can see we've got a couple spaces here that are a little bit over their capacity. We've got a couple that are available and quite a few that are occupied. So one way to start this workflow is if we see a space that we want, we can actually now drag and drop any of these folks onto the space to perform an assignment. And as we assign them, you'll see the map updates. They leave the workspace, and we then get our new assignments. So we can do this again and again. If you have a multi-space policy, we can unassign from other spaces as we're assigning to new. We can also, if we want, choose to drag people from the map to the workspace as a way to initiate an unassignment. So we just drag some people in. We might drag another person out. And this is a way that you can coordinate and really manage all of the people you're trying to find space for as you move across different buildings, floors, or spaces. Doesn't really matter where they are. So as a way to start to manage and coordinate moves, this is a real enhancement for anybody managing space, particularly department space admins like we're looking at here today. Now, because my department happens to be one of those departments that was allocated space in the new lab, I also know that today I need to do some work to update how I'm actually using that space. So if I go down to the first floor and I select that space we were on before, I'm going to jump out to details view. I'm going to close my Move Workspace because I'm done doing assignments. And now I really want to come in and actually describe what am I doing here for research. So for indirect cost recovery, this is a really important set of data capture maintenance concepts. I may know my PIs that I want to assign. I may know my PIs, but I don't actually know all the functional uses yet. So you can add functional uses, PI assignments, and budget codes independent of one another for your own allocation, but not for an allocation of another department. So this is a way to take whatever data you have to start to enter it and manage it and support the collection and maintenance of indirect cost recovery data across your organization. So as a department space admin, there are some rules and permissions around who can edit what, really following department lines. And this is a way for you to go to the places where you have allocations and fill that out. So let's take another step back, and if we go into any building, and one of the things that nearly every user of Envision needs is quick access to standard floor layouts, also called block plans. A block plan is really a standard print that defines the floor in one of multiple ways. So if we wanted to find a floor plan for that building we were just working on, which would have all the edits that we just made to it, we know we just reclassified space on the first floor. So if I go to the first floor, while this is rotated geographically to help me understand the context, I probably want to know what types of spaces are here, what departments are assigned. So for any floor in Envision, behind the scenes now, we have this automated process that will create standard PDF block plans with rotated layouts, consistent marginalia, and symbology. And in this case, this one is showing us our departments, where they're assigned, how many spaces they have in this particular floor. We have another one here for space type. So this one will show us the types of space. And you can add as many of these as you want to represent the different kinds of things that your organization is interested in. Typically, it's the organization, the space type, maybe the occupants, but you can have as many of these as possible. You can still print, so you always have the option to print, but this is a way to not have to wait for a print job to run, to just download the standard updated authoritative information. So we're going to switch gears all together now and leave our space management hat behind. We're going to jump instead into a bit of asset management. There are a number of new things at the current 19 release related to asset management. And if I'm an asset manager, one of the things that I am keeping my finger on the pulse on are, where do we have items that may need replacement? And in this case, I've noticed that I've created a Kpi Cards for show me all my HVAC assets where warranties are about to expire. So I'm pretty interested in this one. I'm going to launch this in Asset Manager so I can start to understand where those are, what they are, what we know about them, and maybe what we don't know about them, so that we can make a decision about what to do. So this has launched Asset Manager. I can see I've got a number of these here. It looks like they're all in the same building. They look like they're almost all the same exact make and model, which means they're probably installed when the building was commissioned. And for some reason, this one is missing a replacement cost. The rest of them have it. So one right away is, if we notice data discrepancies, we can edit a lot of different things in Asset Manager now. So if I wanted to, I could edit this to say the replacement cost should be 8. To see what's around it and which floor it's on. This one is on. And we probably need somebody to, the warranties about, and do an inspection to see generally what the condition is, because we don't see it here. So one of our integrations at this release is with Cartograph Lms. And what you see here are actual tasks that are generated in Cartograph Lms. So if I add a new task as an asset manager, I want to send somebody out to the field to inspect this, to determine what conditions it's in. Should we replace it early? The warranty is about to expire. What are we going to do? So I'm going to have somebody inspect. I'm going to say this is really important, so high priority. It's planned right now. And when I save that, this actually creates, through an API integration, a task in Cartograph where we can manage that work. We can see more information about this. This gets updated. So as someone actually gets assigned it, when they go out in the field, we can see the status of that. So this is a way to integrate external work management and also asset management information that we might be interested in back into a visual display. And in this case, we can see a couple of the attributes that we're bringing back from Cartograph as well. So we can see some pretty critical elements that we don't know current values of, which means we probably need to go out and inspect them. Just like we showed previously in space management, you can manage documents associated with any asset. And it looks like we've got at least one or two images here. This one is bad, so we'll remove that. And then we just got one. So as a manager, I've started at the top, found some assets that need my attention, edited a little bit of data along the way, and then generated a task for somebody to go out and perform an inspection so that I can make my next decision. So I'm going to switch gears, and as a field personnel, if I can make this work, I think. I'm going to go out on my phone. So I'm going to head out into the field, and I'm going to go, first of all, find that VAV box figuring out exactly where it is. And then I'm going to perform my work. And of course, my device isn't mirroring, so, oh well, I can show you what this would look like just in a browser here. So if we log in on our phone, it will look very similar to what I'm about to show you. So imagine, if you will. I'm going to go out into the field on a phone or a tablet, and I'm going to go to my Hvac Explorer. My Hvac Explorer is going to let me search for that asset that I've been asked to inspect. I know what building it's in, I know what floor it's on, but it's also in a potentially pretty hard to find location within the drop ceiling. So I'm going to search for HVAC equipment. I'm going to do 1207, found it, and I'm going to head out to the field. So as I'm out in the field, I'm walking to find this, and I happen to locate another asset that currently isn't in our inventory. So part of this workflow and an update to Explore are the ways that you can quickly perform editing. So I'm walking by and I notice a thermostat that's over here, but it's currently missing. So I've been given permissions to inventory, so I can add a feature. This is a floor aware feature. I'm on floor 5. And this is going to show me all of the different templates for assets that I can inventory. In this case, there's a thermostat. So I've selected the template. I'm going to point to where that is on the map. I'm going to continue, and I'm going to give it a handful of attributes. Now, when I do that, that's going to update behind the scenes so that my manager can see that I've just got a new inventory asset that needs potentially some data work. Since I'm right there, I probably want to capture a photo of it, especially if it's in a hard to find location. In this case, it's not because it's on the wall. If you're on a phone, this will actually prompt you to, do you want to use your phone's camera, or do you want to browse files to upload a device? So here, I think we have a thermostat photo or two. There we go, there's one. So imagine I just took that photo from my phone, if the connection would work. And now we can see the photo, maybe add additional, and we could even create a task here if we wanted to, or potentially upload a document. So as you're out in the field, you have the ability to update data live. You have the ability to add an inventory and use image and document management to further build out the picture of that asset in the field. All of that can be integrated then back with how you manage work and the life expectancy curve of that asset through really robust tools like Cartograph Lms. So if we leave the asset management world and start to look at a couple of the other capabilities around using some of these tools for more rich editing, I'll show you a couple different things that Stu mentioned earlier. So I'm going to open an Egress Map Editor. And this includes some of the new tools for being able to edit different kinds of geometries in Envision. So in this case, I want to update the egress lines for a floor so that we can print an emergency Evac map that gets posted next to the elevator. And to do that, I can use both the automated block plans that we saw before, and I can use the new editing tools in Envision. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to pick floor 4, which already has one. Let's go next door and find a floor that doesn't have one. Let's go here and we'll pick floor 3. Okay, so here's a floor that doesn't have any Evac. So I'm going to come and add a new feature. This is one of the new capabilities at 2019 is for all of the different features that you have permissions to edit, you get individual templates so that you can pick. And we could start with the egress map location. This is essentially where we're going to post this on the wall for people to be able to see. You are here. Next, we'll define where the emergency exits are that we're routing people to. So we've got one over here. Give that an ID. And then we'll use some of our new line and polygon editing tools so that we can actually draw lines to that location. Just to make this interesting, we'll go like that. That would be a normal line. If we wanted to, we could send people on a really interesting path like this. So you have a bunch of different tools available to be able to draw both lines, polygons, and essentially this now generates an automated block plan like you saw before, which you can download as a PDF to print to post on the wall. So if we go to any of these other floors, this is run overnight. And for that floor, we have a link to download an Evac map, which rotates, uses what we just draw, and gives us a context of where it is across the site. You can also use some of these editing tools for other emergency pre-planning or surveillance inventory equipment such as CCTV cameras. And this includes, like I just showed with lines, but in addition, you can do either polygons indoors or places like rally zones outside. And again, you get that same type of feature template to pick the things you want to author, whether they're outdoors or indoors. So one of the bigger, one of the more complex and powerful sets of tools that happen behind the scenes are all the changes that we've made in InVision Admin. So within InVision Admin, as an administrator, you have the ability to configure all the things that I just showed you. You can enable and disable image management for any of your entities across all of your business objects. You have the ability to manage by turn on document management and manage a lot of these settings for security roles and who can access and which entities those are available for. You have the ability to now manage and create roles and add users. And the services that you use can now actually, as Stu mentioned, support for a federated ArcGIS server if you happen to be using Portal. At the app instance level, we've taken a lot of time to increase the level and granularity of permissions. So if we go to that Hvac Explorer app that we were looking at before, you can actually get very granular with who can edit and what kind of editing they can do. So if we wanted to send people out to the field and maybe we wanted them to be able to just view HVAC tasks coming from Cartograph and not actually create one, we could disable editing altogether for those integrated Cartograph LMS tasks. We could allow them to only update the status. So if they needed to change a status field to say it's completed, we could do that. Or you can give them the ability to create a brand new record. You can do that for any of your entities. So you have the ability to really ratchet down what people can do, give them access to the information they need, but make sure that the different application templates, a lot of work has gone into giving you the tools to spin up a new app instance and configure it very quickly, and making sure that we have security and all the other configuration elements front and center for you to use out of the box. So that's a real quick overview, very high-level overview of some of the highlights of InVision 2019. Like I said before, there's a lot more detail we can get into, but I think at this point, Stu, we might want to take some questions.
Thanks very much, Ben. So we do have a few questions that were entered through the chat window. If anyone has additional ones, please enter them and we'll answer them as quickly as we can. I'll review the ones that have come in so far. One question was whether we'll be sharing our slide deck. We will be posting a recording of this webinar on our website later this afternoon, so anyone that didn't have an opportunity to visit the webinar will have a chance to see a recording of it. We have a question about unassigned employees. How are unassigned employees generated? Is it by looking at the total employee database and assuming that an employee needs a space, or is it manual? So what we do is we typically get an output from the organization's HR system on a nightly basis, which will give us a list of all employees that are valid within the system on a daily basis. Employees come and go. And so new hires will show up in that employee database, but they may not yet have a space assignment. We're assuming that every employee should have at least one space assignment in the system. So if they don't have a space assignment, that will lead them to show up in that filter that Ben showed for unassigned employees. It's also possible in Envision to have multiple assignments for an employee. So you might have a doctor that has an office in the admin building and an office in the lab, or you might have an executive that has an office in New York and an office in San Francisco. All that's possible, but not necessary either. We have another question. Can you use Asset Manager if you are not also using Cartograph? Yes, absolutely. Envision has been integrated with a number of different CMMS and other systems over the years. We happen to be pretty excited about Cartograph. It's really a world-class asset and work system. But if you have another asset and work system that you would like to integrate with, that's certainly possible with Envision. We have another question asking if anyone is using this to keep track of network equipment, switches, cables, access points. The answer to that is yes. As a matter of fact, Ben and I were at a site visit last week with folks that are doing exactly that. So you can create asset classes in Envision really for any kind of asset or object that you want to track. You can track those either as point, line, or poly assets that have their own geometry and geography, or you can create them as related to a space or a building. So any of those models are possible. I'm not seeing any other questions out on the deck. If anyone has another question, please type it in. If not, we'll wrap up the webinar for today and we will post it on our website later on this afternoon. So thanks again to everyone for your time today. We respect your time and we know it's valuable, and we appreciate your spending some time with us today. We look forward to speaking with you again soon, and I hope you have an awesome day.